Axis Bank, ICAI Campus Interview Preparation. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most practical preparation guides for Axis Bank campus and off-campus interviews. Brief intro. Axis Bank is one of India's leading private sector banks with a strong footprint in retail lending, corporate lending, treasury operations, digital banking, and risk management. The bank handles high-volume products, technology-enabled services, and large credit exposures, which makes it a great career path for finance, audit, risk, and compliance roles. These questions are compiled using web search and our internal database, so use them as preparation material. But also explore other topics from the channel playlist. Timestamps are available in the description to jump to any question quickly. Let's begin. How would you assess the financial health of a commercial bank like Axis Bank? Sample answer. To assess financial health, I look at capital adequacy, asset quality, earnings stability, and liquidity position. I review metrics such as CRAR, gross and net NPA ratios, provision coverage, CASA ratio, and profitability indicators. I also study treasury income, fee income, and cost-to-income trends to understand long-term sustainability. While answering, include points like capital adequacy, asset quality, and liquidity strength. What are the key risks you must evaluate in a bank audit? Sample answer. I evaluate credit risk, operational risk, fraud risk, liquidity risk, market risk, and compliance risk. I check whether controls are strong enough in lending, treasury, and branch operations. For high-risk areas, I increase the depth of substantive tests. While answering, include points like credit risk, operational risk, and compliance risk. How do you audit advances and verify proper classification? Standard, SMA, NPA. Sample answer. I check repayment history, overdue aging, account conduct, stock statements, and DP calculations. I compare classification with RBI norms and ensure any irregularities are correctly downgraded with required provisioning. While answering, include points like aging, account conduct, and RBI classification rules. What procedures do you follow to test loan documentation completeness? Sample answer. I verify sanction letters, KYC documents, verification reports, mortgage papers, ROC filings, and charge creation. Any missing or expired documents are flagged as compliance deviations. While answering, include points like sanction review, security documentation, and KYC completeness. How do you verify end use of funds in corporate loans? Sample answer. I analyze bank statements, invoice trails, vendor payments, and utilization certificates. I ensure funds have not been diverted. If required, I also review plant visits or third-party confirmations. While answering, include points like tracing payments, invoice checking, and diversion check. What steps do you take to review retail loan portfolios like home loans, auto loans, and personal loans? Sample answer. I sample loan files, verify KYC, income proofs, property documents, repayment history, and overdue aging. I evaluate whether credit policies were followed consistently across branches. While answering, include points like sampling, document review, and policy compliance. How do you audit credit appraisal and underwriting processes? Sample answer. I check financial analysis, scorecards, risk rating models, repayment capacity, and deviation approvals. Proper underwriting ensures the loan book remains healthy, so I verify adherence to approval hierarchy. While answering, include points like financial analysis, risk rating, and hierarchy compliance. What procedures would you perform to test provisioning for NPAs under RBI norms? Sample answer. I verify overdue aging, security value, latest valuation reports, and DP calculations. I examine whether the bank has applied correct provisioning percentages for doubtful and loss assets. While answering, include points like overdue aging, security valuation, and RBI provisioning rates. How do you test interest income recognition for performing and non-performing loans? Sample answer. For standard loans, I recompute interest based on applicable rates and ensure accrual is correct. For NPAs, I ensure the bank has stopped interest recognition and reversed unrealized income as required. While answering, include points like recomputation, NPA interest stoppage, and reversal checks. What checks do you perform for revenue leakage in banking operations? Sample answer. I review service charges, processing fees, penal interest, and locker charges. I test whether the bank has applied correct rates and collected all applicable charges. Any system gaps may cause revenue loss. While answering, include points like fee verification, system checks, and leakage identification. How would you audit compliance with RBI circulars and master directions? Sample answer. I map relevant circulars to audit areas and test whether processes comply with guidelines. Any non-compliance is documented with potential financial impact. I also review internal compliance reports. While answering, include points like circular mapping, compliance testing, and documentation. What procedures do you use to verify cash balances and ATM cash operations? Sample answer. I perform cash counts, check ATM cash loading records, review CCTV logs if needed, and reconcile ATM balances with GL. I also check dual control and access logs. While answering, include points like physical count, reconciliation, and dual control. How do you audit KYC and AML compliance for new accounts? Sample answer. I verify KYC documents, customer risk scoring, PAN-Aadhaar matching, and screening against negative lists. I ensure proper due diligence and correct risk classification. While answering, include points like KYC completeness, risk scoring, and AML screening. What steps do you take to test customer onboarding processes for digital accounts? Sample answer. I check eKYC records, video KYC logs, geotagging requirements, and system validations. I confirm whether customer onboarding complies with regulatory limits and authentication controls. While answering, include points like eKYC review, control validation, and completeness tests. Sample answer. How would you audit fraud-prone areas like overdraft misuse or forged documentation? Sample answer. I analyze unusual transactions, check sudden limit enhancements, verify document authenticity, and review system overrides. Red flag patterns help in early detection. While answering, include points like red flag behavior, overrides, and document checks. What checks do you perform to audit off-balance sheet items like guarantees and LCs? Sample answer. I review sanction limits, documentation, commission collection, expiry dates, and contingent liability treatment. Guarantees and LCs require correct reporting due to inherent risk. While answering, include points like documentation, limit checks, and liability disclosure. Unquote. How do you verify Treasury transactions and investment classifications? HTM, AFS, HFT. Sample answer. I check deal slips, confirmations, valuation workings, and adherence to RBI investment classification norms. I ensure proper amortization and mark-to-market treatment. While answering, include points like deal verification, valuation, and classification rules. What procedures do you follow to test SLR and CRR compliance? Sample answer. I verify daily and fortnightly reports, investment holdings, cash balances, and RBI returns. I check whether the bank maintained required buffers without shortfalls. While answering, include points like statutory requirement checks, RBI returns, and buffer adequacy. How do you audit foreign exchange transactions and FEMA compliance? Sample answer. I check import-export documents, bill of entry, SWIFT messages, and FEMA limits. I ensure KYC compliance and proper classification in the GL. While answering, include points like FEMA limits, documentation, and proper reporting. What steps do you take to verify internal control effectiveness in branch operations? Sample answer. I check maker-checker controls, access rights, cash controls, vault access, and transaction limits. Strong branch controls reduce both fraud and operational errors. While answering, include points like segregation of duties, access control, and monitoring. How would you test accuracy of interest rate application on loan and deposit accounts? Sample answer. I recompute interest using applicable slabs, floating rate resets, and deposit tenures. Any variance is traced to system errors or manual overrides. While answering, include points like recomputation, system validation, and override checks. How do you audit digital banking channels like mobile banking and internet banking? Sample answer. I test authentication controls, transaction logs, limit settings, and reconciliation between systems. I verify whether digital operations follow security and regulatory norms. While answering, include points like authentication, logs, and limit validations. What procedures would you follow to test credit card operations and receivables? Sample answer. I review card issuance documentation, credit limits, interest computation, delinquency aging, and chargeback processes. I also check fraud monitoring controls. While answering, include points like documentation, credit limits, and aging. How do you audit ATM reconciliation and cash settlement processes? Sample answer. I verify EJ logs, ATM cash loading slips, reconciliation statements, and settlement timelines. Unreconciled differences are examined immediately. While answering, include points like logs, slips, and reconciliation. What steps would you take to check correct classification of deposit accounts, CASA term deposits? Sample answer. I check customer onboarding records, contract terms, deposit tenure, interest rate mapping, and GL classification. Misclassification affects interest provisions and compliance. While answering, include points like tenure review, interest mapping, and GL accuracy. How do you audit priority sector lending compliance? Sample answer. I verify loan files, borrower categories, end use, ticket sizes, and sector eligibility as per RBI guidelines. I check reporting formats and ensure the bank meets targets for agriculture, MSME, and weaker sections. Any mismatches in classification are corrected during audit. While answering, include points like RBI criteria, sector eligibility, and reporting accuracy. What checks would you perform for loan restructuring cases? Sample answer. I examine restructuring proposals, revised repayment schedules, borrower viability, and board approvals. I ensure correct asset classification and provisioning after restructuring as per RBI guidelines. While answering, include points like proposal review, viability assessment, and post-restructuring classification. How do you evaluate risk in corporate lending for large-ticket borrowers? Sample answer. I analyze financial ratios, cash flows, credit ratings, industry risks, promoter background, and security cover. I also review group exposure and related party linkages to avoid concentration risk. While answering, include points like financial strength, industry risk, and security adequacy. What procedures would you follow to test branch-level statutory returns? Sample answer. I check accuracy of data extracted from CBS, verify supporting schedules, and ensure timely submission. Incorrect statutory reporting, is a major compliance risk. While answering, include points like data validation, timeliness, and schedule verification. How do you audit employee fraud or unauthorized transactions? Sample answer. I analyze unusual GL entries, override logs, CCTV evidence, and staff account behavior. I also trace transactions back to source documents. Any red flags are escalated immediately. While answering, include points like override logs, unusual entries, and escalation. What steps do you take to test digital payment systems like UPI and IMPS? Sample answer. I verify transaction logs, settlement reports, chargebacks, and dispute resolutions. I also test limit controls, authentication methods, and reconciliation with the CBS. While answering, include points like logs, reconciliation, and control testing. How do you audit bancassurance income and cross-sell commissions? Sample answer. I check customer consent, product suitability, policy issuance records, and commission statements. I verify whether the bank recognizes income only after meeting regulatory conditions. While answering, include points like commission verification, policy records, and compliance. What checks do you perform for gold loan operations? Sample answer. I verify gold purity testing records, loan-to-value compliance, storage security, insurance coverage, and auction procedures. Any variance in weight or purity is investigated. While answering, include points like purity testing, LTV checks, and security controls. How do you review branch security measures and compliance with audit guidelines? Sample answer. I check CCTV functioning, vault controls, dual custody, alarm systems, and physical security registers. Strong security reduces operational and fraud risks. While answering, include points like CCTV, vault access, and alarm controls. What steps do you take to evaluate IFRS Ind AS implications on banking financial statements? Sample answer. I analyze ECL models, fair valuation of investments, hedge accounting, and consolidation impacts. I ensure disclosures follow Ind AS requirements for financial instruments. While answering, include points like ECL, fair value, and Ind AS disclosures. How would you audit recoveries and write-offs? Sample answer. I verify recovery receipts, settlement letters, compromise approvals, and write-off files. I ensure board-approved policies were followed and recoveries were correctly accounted. While answering, include points like recovery tracing, approvals, and proper accounting. What procedures do you follow to audit customer complaints and grievance redressal mechanisms? Sample answer. I review complaint registers, turnaround times, escalations, and closure evidence. I also check repeated complaint patterns indicating systemic issues. While answering, include points like complaint logs, TAT, and systemic patterns. How do you test payroll and HR processes within a bank branch? Sample answer. I verify attendance records, salary sheets, loan deductions, PFESI contributions, and approvals. I confirm no phantom employees exist and payroll integrates with HR records. While answering, include points like salary verification, deductions, and approval checks. What steps would you take to audit loan-to-value, LTV adherence for secured loans? Sample answer. I check valuation reports, sanctioned limits, margin requirements, and periodic revaluations. LTV breaches indicate early credit risk. While answering, include points like valuation review, margin checking, and revaluation. How do you audit SME loans and working capital assessment? Sample answer. I verify financial statements, stock statements, DP calculations, turnover trends, and collateral coverage. I also check end use of funds and create early warning flags. While answering, include points like DP calculation, collateral, and cash flow. What checks do you perform while auditing locker management and key control? Sample answer. I check key custody logs, dual control, locker agreements, rent records, and access logs. Locker security is crucial due to legal sensitivity. While answering, include points like custody control, logs, and agreements. How would you test accuracy of provisioning for standard assets? Sample answer. I check category-wise loan balances, apply RBI prescribed percentages, and verify system calculations. Higher provisioning may apply for stressed sectors. While answering, include points like RBI percentages, category-wise provisioning, and system verification. What procedures would you perform to audit internal audit follow-up and closure of past observations? Sample answer. I review previous audit reports, check whether corrective actions were implemented, and verify closure evidence. Repeated observations indicate weak governance. While answering, include points like follow-up checks, evidence review, and escalation. How do you test the effectiveness of cybersecurity controls in banking operations? Sample answer. I review access logs, password policies, firewalls, incident reports, and penetration test results. I ensure compliance with cybersecurity frameworks. While answering, include points like access review, threat controls, and incident monitoring. How would you evaluate risk in digital lending products introduced by Axis Bank? Sample answer. I analyze algorithm-based underwriting, data sources, customer profiling, and repayment behavior. I also evaluate model governance and fraud controls. While answering, include points like model risk, fraud controls, and customer behavior. End. What steps do you take to audit settlement accounts, clearing operations, and suspense accounts? Sample answer. I verify pending items, aging, clearing files, and mismatch reasons. Suspense items must be cleared promptly to avoid financial misstatements. While answering, include points like aging, reconciliation, and timely clearance. How do you assess branch-level compliance with KYC periodic updates? Sample answer. I check review cycles, risk category frequency, updated documents, and system flags. Periodic KYC ensures AML compliance throughout the customer lifecycle. While answering, include points like update cycles, document review, and AML linkage. What procedures do you follow to audit loan monitoring post-disbursement? Sample answer. I check stock statements, insurance renewals, site visits, financial statements, and covenant compliance. Strong monitoring prevents early stress. While answering, include points like stock updates, covenants, and insurance. How do you audit vendor payments and outsourced services used by the bank? Sample answer. I verify purchase orders, service agreements, invoices, payment approvals, and TDS deduction. Outsourced processes also require contract compliance checks. While answering, include points like invoice verification, approval workflow, and compliance. What steps do you take to plan and execute a branch statutory audit efficiently under limited timelines? Sample answer. I prioritize high-risk areas, allocate responsibilities, prepare checklists, and complete sampling early. Proper planning ensures complete coverage without compromising quality. While answering, include points like risk prioritization, planning, and timely execution. Thank you for watching, and if you liked our video, kindly press the like button and leave us a comment. This will help us reach a wider audience. Don't forget to check the playlist for more great learning.